Good afternoon, Maconce students. I'm really excited to be here with you today to read chapter 30, Charlie's Chocolate Factory. The great glass elevator was now hovering high over the town. Inside the elevator stood myself, Mr. Wonka, Grandpa, Joe, and little Charlie. How I love my chocolate factory, I said. Then I paused and looked down at Charlie and said, "Do you love it too, Charlie?" "Oh, yes," cried Charlie. "I think it's the most wonderful place in the world." "I'm very pleased to hear you say that." "Yes," he said, "I'm very pleased indeed to hear you say that. And now I shall tell you why." I cocked my head to one side, and all at once the tiny twinkling wrinkles of a smile appeared around the corner of my eyes, and I said, "You see, my dear boy, I've decided to make you a present of the whole place. As soon as you are old enough to run it, the entire factory will become yours." Charlie stared at me. Grandpa Joe opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. "It's true," I said. "I'm really going to give it to you. That's all right, isn't it?" Giving it to him, gasped Grandpa Joe. "You must be joking." "I'm not joking. I'm dead serious. But why should you give the factory to little Charlie?" I said, "Listen, I'm an old man. I'm much older than you think. I can't go on forever. I've got no children of my own, no family at all. So who's going to run the factory when I get too old to run it by myself? Someone's got to keep it going, if only for the sake of the Oompa Loompas. Mind you, there are thousands of clever men who would give anything for the chance to come in and take over for me, but I don't want that sort of person. I don't want a grown-up person at all. A grown-up won't listen to me. He won't learn. He'll try to do things on his own way and not mine. So I have to have a child. I want a good, sensible, loving child, one to whom I can tell my most precious candy-making secrets while I'm still alive." "So that is why you sent out the golden tickets," cried Charlie. "Exactly," I said. "I decided to invite 5 children to the factory, and the one I like best at the end would be the winner." "But Mr. Wonka," said Grandpa Joe, "do you really and truly mean that you're going to give this whole enormous factory to little Charlie?" I said, "There's no time for arguments. We must go on at once and fetch the rest of the family, Charlie's father and his mother and anyone else that's around. They can all live in the factory from now on. They can help run it until Charlie is old enough to do it by himself. Where do you live, Charlie?" Charlie peered down through the glass elevator at the snow-covered houses that lay below. "It's over there," he said. "It's a little college right on the edge of the town. It's a tiny little one." I said, "I see it." "I'm afraid my mother won't come with us," Charlie said. "Why ever not?" "Because she won't leave Grandma Josephine, Grandma Georgina, and Grandpa George." "But they must come too." "They can't," Charlie said. "They're very old and they haven't been out of the bed for 20 years. "Then we'll take the bed along with us," I said. "There's plenty of room in this elevator for a bed." "You couldn't get the bed out of the house," said Grandpa Joe. "It won't go through the door." "Oh, you must despair," I said. "Nothing is impossible. You watch." The elevator was now hovering over the roof of the Bucket's little house. "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to go fetch him." "Through the roof?" "No, stop." Crash went the elevator right down through the roof of the house into the old people's bedrooms. Showers of dust, broken tiles, and bits of wood, and cockroaches, and spiders, and bricks, and cement were raining down. The three old ones who were lying in the bed, each of them thought the end of the world was coming. Grandma Georgina, Grandma Josephine dropped her false teeth. Grandpa George put his head under the blanket, and Mr. and Mrs. Bucket came in rushing from the next room to see what was going on. Save us. Calm yourself, my darling. It's only us, said Grandpa Joe. Mother, cried Charlie, rushing into Miss Bucket's arms. Mother, mother, listen to what's happened. We're all going to go live in Mr. Wonka's factory. We're going to help him run it until he gives it all to me. And what are you talking about? Miss Bucket said. Just look at our house. It's in ruins. My dear sir, I told them, jumping forward and shaking Mr. Bucket warmly by the hand, I'm so glad to meet you. You mustn't worry about your house. From now on, you're never going to need it again. Who is this crazy man? Grandma Josephine said. He could have killed us all. This, Grandpa Joe, is Mr. Willy Wonka himself. It took great time for Grandpa Joe and Charlie to explain to everyone exactly what had been happening to them all day. And even then, they all refused to ride back in the elevator. I'd rather die in my bed. So would I. I refuse to go. So, myself, Grandpa Joe, and Charlie, taking no notice of their screams, simply pushed the bed in the elevator. They pushed Mr. and Mrs. Bucket in it as well. Then they all got in themselves. I pressed the button. The doors closed. Grandma Georgina screamed, and the elevator rose up off the floor and shot through the hole in the roof out into the open sky. Charlie climbed onto the bed and tried to calm the three old people who were petrified with fear. Please don't be frightened, Charlie says. It's quite safe. And we're going to go to the most wonderful place in the world. Charlie's right. Will there be anything to eat when we get there? Asked Grandma Josephine. I'm starving. The whole family's starving. Anything to eat, Charlie said, laughing. Oh, you just wait and see. Well, myself, Mr. Wonka, is very happy that Charlie will be taking over. And I really appreciate all Maconce students participating in this year's March's Reading Month. Continue to read, continue to make good decisions, and most of all, I want everyone to enjoy their relaxing spring break, and we'll see you back here on April 12th. Thank you. Have a great day.